very good evening and a warm welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we speak to women leaders and get some insight into their role in the recovery process of COVID-19. And this particular episode of the show is brought to you by UN Women. The COVID-19 pandemic is not just a health issue, it is a profound shock to our societies and economies, and women are at the heart of care and response efforts. In Uganda, just like in any other country, most caregivers at home and in our communities are women, meaning the outbreak of the disease has increased their care burden many times with meager resources and limited health facilities and services. Additionally, they are at increased risk of infection and loss of livelihood, and existing trends point to less access to sexual and reproductive health and a rise in domestic violence during this crisis. According to the World Health Organization, gender equity in health workforce analysis of 104 countries, women make up 70%, women make up 70% of the world's healthcare workers and are overall more vulnerable in times of crisis. They only make up 25% of legislators and 6% of state and government leaders. Emergency response task forces around the world are overwhelmingly male-dominated, and additionally, few women are invited and quoted in the media to provide expertise on relief and the recovery responses. Representation always matters, especially in times like these, times of crisis. So today on the show, we are checking in with the women and finding out how they're doing, what they're doing, and for the leaders, how exactly are they managing this situation. I'll very quickly introduce my guests, and sitting with me in the studio, as you can see, there's a social distance, and the Right Honourable Speaker came in with her mask, so she's following all of the rules. Right Honourable Rebecca Kadaga, the Speaker of Parliament, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
It's a pleasure to be here this evening.
I can imagine how busy you are, but still here you are.
Important for the women.
It is, it absolutely is. Joining us on Zoom as well is Bonnie Mutungi, the Executive Director, Center for Women in Governance. So thank you so much, Bonnie, for joining us.
Yes, good evening, dear viewers. Good evening, Josephine and everyone here and out there who are listening to us.
Just quickly point out that we have the Right Honourable Speaker with us on the show. She's in the studio with me. But we'll have a couple of other guests that will join us later. We're still having quite a bit of problems with internet connection, I think, for most of them. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining the conversation. I hope you're all doing well in this period. Well, to start us off, thank you for all of the work that you're doing in the different sectors that you lead. But what has it been like for you in Parliament and also for your organization, Bonnie? What has it been like for you as a woman, first of all, and also as a leader in these times? We can start with you, Honourable.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. It has been quite an interesting experience because there's nothing like this. I think the last time there was an epidemic in the world was during the influenza pandemic. It was many, many years ago. So we don't have much experience about these situations. But this one came in such a massive way and has had a big effect on the way we work, the way we live. For instance, we have had to move out of our chamber, the chamber of the House, because there would be no social distancing. We moved from the chamber and went to the conference hall where we thought there was enough space. And then the Minister of Health said, no, this is not good enough. You really have to get out. So now we are sitting in a tent. And we have also had to make adjustments. We can no longer have all the 400 members sitting in the plenary. So we're now doing it in turns. A group of 80 on Tuesday, another group of 80 on Wednesday, another group of 80 on Thursday, and so on. So we have had to make adjustments. But also we have now got the temperature guns at all the entrances, yes, on all the floors. So everybody who arrives has to be checked first with the temperature. We have the sanitizers all over the place, and so there are so many things that have changed. And then, of course, now you have to really keep your distance. You know, we are working together, sitting together in a meeting, but you know, you cannot walk out of Parliament together. You must walk, you know, with space and so on. So it's been quite tough. But then the other major one is the reduction in the amount of working time, because there's a curfew. Ideally, Parliament closes at about 6:30, but now because of the curfew and there's no public transport, we now have to close at 5. If I stretch it, maybe 5:30, so that staff can leave and go home, members can leave. So it has also shortened the amount of work we do. And for the first time, we did the budget with limited interaction with the ministries. I mean, face to face. Normally, the ministries come and defend their budget, explain their action plans, explain their needs and so on. So we had to do it online. And then there was just one meeting between the ministries and the committees before we worked on the budget. So a lot has changed. Yeah. And then
but you're not just a speaker, though.
Yes.
You're not just a speaker of parliament. You're many other roles,
yes.
you know, as an individual.
Yes.
But then you're a woman at the forefront in all of this.
Yes.
How are you handling as an individual and then as a woman leading a large team of people?
Yeah. Well, first, as a woman who's leading, I have to show, first of all, live by example. When I arrive at parliament, I have to be checked. They have to take my temperature in public, and they tell me what it is, and then I sanitize and go into the building. I'd also, if I walk in the building and I find people standing together, I'll tell them please separate and so on. So we have now taken up the job of supervision, so that nobody forgets that we have a problem. Yes.
Bonnie, what has it been like for you? I hope you're still there. What has it been like for you in your organization?
I'm there, Josephine. Well, this very pandemic started when we were in the field as women organization, trying to train women, because that's what we do in our daily office. We were out of Kampala. The first announcement actually caught me in Mbarara. That was on 18th of March. I had a meeting on 19th. I had a meeting on 20th. So it was a boom on our side as an organization, and for me as an individual. So you can imagine from there, we were, like everyone else was in panic. We were in panic, we were in shock. We didn't know how to proceed. We had to cancel the meetings that were there then, but we had to sit and reorganize ourselves and adapt to this new technology and decide to see what do we do, how do we move on. Eventually, we reorganized ourselves. We came back to Kampala. As more directives were coming in, then transport was stopped. So now there was no more coming to office. Now this was another room to think and brainstorm on what next. But to cut the story short, we eventually learned how to work in a distance, how to work from our homes. And as I can say, we are actually very busy as an organization trying to work on women issues, because that's our core mandate.
Most of the key issues when I go online, and the key issues when you listen to women speaking about what's happening now, the key issues that keep coming up are access to medical facilities, pregnant women losing their lives on the way to hospital and their babies as well, domestic violence, job loss, access to food. And I want to know if from both of you, these are the same complaints that are on your table. When you engage with the women that you lead, what do they tell you?
Most of the issues which were coming to our attention, as you said, the major one was maternal health related, going for antenatal checkups, and worst of it all, labor pains of women who would not reach hospital because of lack of transport. And that, in the long run, would also culminate into domestic violence or gender-based violence. The other issues were also gender-related, like you'd find that there is a lot of sexual harassment on the side of women. Then there was also some unplanned sexual behaviors that came up as a result of people being locked in one place, being redundant, being in squeezed places. Like, many Ugandans, especially those that are in town suburbs, they stay in squeezed places, and when there is a congestion or when there is a lot of redundancy, there were a lot of issues also coming on our side on how to contain the behaviors of young girls and young boys in regard to sexual behaviors. So those are some of the issues. Then there was another issue that whereas the task force is going on, there was an issue of women not being heard so much, because you found out that not many women were part of the decision making at the district task force level.
I just want to check in with the speaker on if these issues that Bonnie is mentioning and that I mentioned earlier ring true in your ear. Are these the same that you're getting on your desk?
I think mine are slightly more, because I have a team from Parliament, 3 teams actually, which have been carrying out oversight. in the health facilities, in the quarantine centers and isolation centers. And some of the findings are really worrying. Of course, there's going to be a report presented next week. But in some places, the quarantine centers, you find that people who have been arrested for defying the curfew, people who are late to doing something, who have been bothered and so on, all of them are taken and lumped together in one room. So men, women, children, in one room. There are no, in a number of them, there are no sanitation facilities. Some of them are in schools, and the schools were not made to accommodate people. So there are all those issues. And then if a woman is in the quarantine center for 14 days, sometimes they don't have food, sometimes they don't have water, they don't have sanitation.
Menstruation
Yes.
matters come in at a point.
They come in at some point. So you are in there, you can't get out, you have no, you know. So all those issues come into play. And then, of course, from the constituencies, we get information, this voter died, this person died because they could not reach the hospital. Difficult to process the clearances to leave from home to go, but also leaving your home to go to the hospital is difficult because you have no transport. Some people have walked and others have actually died because, you know, the distances were too long. So on the maternal side, there's been quite a bit of hardship. But also in the ordinary operation, for instance, a woman in my village, she now has to make sure that by 7:15, she has, there's enough water in the house, there's enough food in the house, there's enough firewood, because no one will go out in the night. You can no longer go to hang about at the borehole and maybe say, okay, I'll go back at 7, pick up the water and come back at 9. You can't do that. So the pressure on the mother to ensure that all these things are done before curfew time is really quite tough. And then, of course, the issues of being cooped up together. People who are now used to being at home, now they have to be together in the house. They are looking at the children. There's demand for food, demand for this, and so this is all. There's a potential for violence.
What are we doing about it when we hear these reports, for when they come to your desk? What is then your response?
Many things. One, if it is a simple one, I issue a directive. If it's more complicated, I send it to the Prime Minister. I inform the House that I've received this complaint and I'm now sending it to the Prime Minister. And then at the task force, we have 4 members of Parliament who are attached to the National Task Force. And recently we added the chair of the Human Rights Committee and the PWDs, because the issue of the PWDs were not being addressed in the National Task Force, so they are kind of being forgotten. So through those channels, I take in I ensure that the information reaches the authorities so that they can also be addressed. Like this week, we're addressing the issue of the food in the universities. You know, it's been tough. They have been in lockdown for several months. They cannot go to their homes. The hostels, the rent in the hostel is run out, and all kinds of things. So when we get them, we amplify them and then instruct the government.
All right. Well, let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center in the NTV Uganda studios. And we are speaking to women in leadership to just get a sense of what they're doing with their positions to help women and girls around the country as we fight COVID-19, and also looking at response plans. Just to hear from other women, and I know that we have Hajat Farida Chiboa, the chairperson of the Uganda National Women's Council, who sent in her thoughts on this particular conversation, and also Shekat Namakula Radia Kamis, the Secretary Women and Youth Affairs at the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. And we also had a woman market leader who shared her thoughts. Let's take a look.
I'm also a leader in the section I work to. We have liquid soap here, we have our sanitizers. We wash our hands out. You've also washed your hands before you enter the market. We stay inside the market. We don't move around when you're not going to do anything. Actually, you sit in one place, wait for the customer there. Me, I use the market garden hub most of the times. It's what I use to get the orders from. You send me your order, I get the order. I send you your vegetables you ordered from at home. It has affected us, more so we the women. because we had to leave our families home, come and stay in the market, sleep in the market. You don't know how your kids are, you don't know how your husband is, or they have eaten or what. For us, we are in the market, all our life in the market, although we communicate via phones, and the businesses have really gone down. We used to supply those in the hotels. These days, the hotels, they are no longer working. Some of them have opened really, but the businesses are few. They take few of supply as they used to take. What we used to buy is no longer what we are buying at this time. What we used to earn is no longer what we are earning at this time. It has really, really affected us. We try to balance our families, and the market is between the communication you have between you and your partner at home. We communicated before we came into the market because they knew about the disease. So we came after communicating and agreeing, so we remain communicating on phones until when the situation will come to normal. That's when we shall meet at home. And that's how we try to balance our homes and the market. We don't know what is going to happen next, because soon school is going to be open, and there are those women who pay fees for their kids. There are those women who actually they are the fathers and they work for the parents, for the kids at home. We don't actually know what is going to happen next. We are just waiting to see what is going to happen.
Thank you, Josephine Karunji. My community of Muslim women is going through a lot in this season of COVID-19 pandemic. First of all, we are going through a challenge of mismanaged polygamy. You are aware that sometimes polygamous husbands own more than one home, and the imbalance is likely to happen during this COVID-19 season because the husbands are locked in one place and the other home may be limping. The second challenge is that it is a fasting season. This is Ramadan. We are fasting, and the meals are quite expensive. Sometimes we may not eat the very foods that we eat during other months, and spending on meals in most of the cases sits on the shoulders of women. So they have budgetary problems as far as meals are concerned, but all the same, they are fasting. We have another challenge as Muslim women. By design, our families are bigger. We have bigger number of children, we have bigger homes, we have extended families in our homes, and you find that if you don't have a daily income, feeding that family becomes a problem. Then other expenses like power, electricity, airtime, MBs also come in, not to mention medical problems. So if we are still living under lockdown, this may cause a lot of violence, because in the event that basic needs are not there, you cannot rule out violence. We are also going through another challenge of communication. We find that the president, when His Excellency the President, whenever he gives guidelines, they are always in English. And many of our people cannot interpret that to the extent that it is needed. So they are aware that we have a pandemic, but the depths of the problem is not all that clear to them.
Mothers are stuck with children. They are stuck, not only children, they are even stuck with husbands. Yes, you can be stuck with a man, you with your children, with everybody at home, and you're responsible. You know a mother is always responsible for whoever is in the family. So we have so many challenges. When you look at the pregnant women, they have been calling me. They cannot access their health facilities because of the curfew, because of the transport, because of the money itself. When we talk about the women, we talk about the rural women, because for us we are rural women. We were elected right from the villages, and we know those women in the markets and the challenges that they have. When you look at what is happening now, recently the president was praising them that they are sleeping in the markets, but of course they still have challenges. When he ordered for the nets, but that is not enough. They can be sexually harassed. They can be robbed. They can even be killed. Those are some of the challenges that they face. They can work the whole day, get the money, but at night someone can come and steal that money. How safe are they? How safe are those women in the market? But they are there because they have to work. We want to encourage government to make use of the women leaders. The women leaders are there. Let them be given a chance to lead others. Like in identification, we were asking who identified those that are going to get food. Because some were even calling me, they were telling me that, Chair, some of us are widows. You're a widow, but you're in a flat with a gate, but the husband left you in that beautiful house. You don't have anything to eat. But for them, they were saying that if you're in a big house with a fence, you cannot access what? Food. They think you're okay. But the women leaders out there know that so and so is in need. Recently, I was in Kawempe. The woman stripped off. She remained naked. I don't know whether you saw that on social media. I had to go there.
I've used media, especially radio and a few TV stations, to preach peace, first of all. I've preached peace in homes. I've encouraged our women to be peaceful, to be generous, to have those values that Islam encourages us to have. So my proposal is that is to have a fund to facilitate and lend money to these women to open up small and medium enterprises.
These policy makers, from national to the local level, they should engage women in all what they do. Because at the end of the day, these women leaders were elected by those women. They know them. They know the single mothers. They can identify them.
We would want to see Parliament debate more about the effects of COVID lockdown. I know there is a lot that has been going on. I know there is a lot about money. But beyond that, can we see Parliament giving direction, strategies on how best the communities can be helped, especially women, in this kind of crisis? So we would want to see Parliament. Let each woman member of Parliament in her district be part of the task force and correct views of women and families and put them together for solutions and for guidance. That is one of what we would want to put forward based on our findings and report. Secondly, can we see, like Speaker has put and I had said, we know that these positions on task force were put there by the virtue of the position in whole. But can we also include positions like lady councillors who represent districts and sub-counties and women chairpersons of district councils? Can we see that so that the whole committee is engendered? I know this is not permanent, but we also don't know when it will end. And can we see attention being driven to psychosocial support? There is a lot that people have gone through. There is a lot of trauma. And we would want to see a lot combined effort when approaching trauma that has arisen out of this lockdown. As I had said, a lot of effects have come up. Death has come up, disorganization in families has come up. So we need to pay attention to effects of COVID-19 lockdown. In addition, of course, to prevention on what the Ministry of Health is telling us. And we also appreciate that the Ministry of Health with the leadership of the president, they've done quite a lot.
All right, thank you so much, Bonnie. My next question to you, Honorable, is, well, perhaps a thorn in everybody's flesh is we've been asked to stay home, all of us, and many people are staying home, but our numbers keep going up anyway. And every time this comes up, the conversation is, let the women keep away from the truck drivers. Is this all there is to this conversation?
Now, I think it's not just enough to say keep away, because these truck drivers have particular stops in different areas. I think that's where they buy food, that's where they sleep, that's where they spend time and so on. So it's important for government to identify those particular areas and then arrange how to quarantine these people. Not just to say, don't go near them. I think we should actually quarantine them so that we know where they are, we can account for them and their time. Because at the moment, they are tested and then they go, they continue on their journey. And then our numbers have risen. They're not from the community, they're from the people who are on the road. So I think it's important that we make arrangements, because we know the stops where they go, to stop there, deal with them, and then release them only when they are okay. But to manage it, not just say don't go there. We should manage it as a state.
As a state. What other place have you seen your role come up and you play a position in helping women and girls during this COVID-19 response?
I have, if I talk about my constituency, the first thing I did was to purchase the washing equipment for the major hospitals, the health center 4s, the health center 3s, health center 2s, and the markets, all the places where people gather, and in the trading center. I bought several of them with soap and placed them in all these places as a start, so that they learn that you know, you are going to the market, you first wash your hands before you enter the market. You enter the hospital, you first wash your hands. So I did all that as a start. And then I have been supporting particular communities, the people with the young children, people with food and so on. So we have been doing a bit of that. And now I've also supplied sanitizers to different places, soap, to those who are not able to look after themselves. We've done that, in particular in my town. We have ensured that the people who are out of jobs at least have got food. Because, for instance, if you are to think about just one taxi, the number of jobs around the taxi. First, you have the taxi driver, you have the conductor, you have the waroro, what we call waroro in my language, who shout,
who stand around and call people,
Kamuri and so on. Then you have the place where they wash the cars. There's someone who washes that car every day. And then there's a lady who cooks food for these people. So there are 6 jobs attached to one taxi. So the whole chain are out of work. It's not just the driver and the conductor. It's all these other people who are attached. So it's quite a big thing. And we've had to, in my place, we've had to support those women because now there's no one to buy their food. So they're not selling. So we have also had to support them. And also these borders and all these people, we have supported all of them. We did quite a big program, both for the region, but also for me as a member of parliament. And I'm continuing. I've not stopped. I've been on this for I don't know how many weeks, but I'm still continuing.
What more do you think that the government can do, parliament, the civil society and the media anyway, to amplify women's voices, especially during this time? Because as much as we know that women carry the brunt of all of this, they're the least hard.
Yeah.
What can we do?
Yeah, when I saw the UN telling me that one of the market women would come, I was really excited because I wanted to hear the experience. You know, when the government first said they should stay there, as the Prime Minister, yes, the ladies have agreed to stay in the market overnight. What are the facilities there? Are there bathrooms? Are there toilets? He said, I'll come back to you. He hasn't come back.
Well, I will tell you because we've covered them extensively, and they're using shared bathrooms. And for most of them, this is extremely uncomfortable. Mosquito nets were not properly distributed, so not everybody got a mosquito net. So there are a couple of problems that they have, and some of them they can't go back home because the husband said, if you chose to stay in the market, you stay there.
Yes.
So don't come back.
Yes. It's very, very important for their voices to be heard, because sometimes when people are planning, they don't actually think about the nitty-gritty. They don't. So for us, when this COVID pandemic broke out, we set up a committee to look at the likely impact on the population. and we had a long debate and made the resolutions which we presented to the government. Said this, we think this is going to happen to this community and this community and this community. Would you care to look at ABCD, especially things like recovery package, really supporting some of these small business people, even the big ones. You know, I'm a hotelier. The other day I went to my constituency. It was empty. My hotel was empty. I was jolted, you know. So how many others are like that? So we have given our views to the government on the recovery, and recently I instructed the Committee of National Economy to now talk to the stakeholders in the industry and so on, and find out what else can we do. But the other thing we did is that during the revenue bills, we made sure that there are no new taxes, so that at least the stability on what was passed last year, so that there's no additional pressure on the citizens. So we put a moratorium. It's only one area where we allowed, that was only on the fuel. The rest we said no.
What are your final thoughts on what women should do? Not even just the women leaders, but the women in general. A lot of women have lost their jobs, same as men. People have lost their jobs, or their salaries have been cut. Or, I mean, COVID has affected us in more ways than just health. How do we continue after this?
One of the things that we have had to learn is to think outside the box. The new normal is to think different and innovate. Today I was driving to my office, and I saw a young man with masks, and clearly they had been made probably in the cottage industry. So I think that we should adapt more and try to innovate more, because we have the capacity to do things differently. So I think we should innovate more and think outside the box.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Honorable, for taking the time to speak with us.
It's a pleasure.
Well, that brings us to the end of our show for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Bonnie, and everybody else who joined in or tuned in and spent their time with us to just have this conversation that I think is extremely important about the participation of women and women leaders as we fight COVID-19 and as we look ahead to the days after it. That brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching. Coming up is NTV Weekend Edition with Sandra Twinobudio. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We're speaking about women's role in this COVID-19 period. What are they doing to do their jobs and actually help other women and young girls in their communities? Bonnie, before we took a break, you started to speak about what your organization is doing and how you conducted a study in 8 districts on the effects of COVID-19 on women and girls. What was the most shocking thing? Without repeating the things that we've already spoken about as the key issues, what else stood out?
For me, what stood out first and foremost was the domestic violence geared by this lockdown. And it was the most painful thing. And the reason was mainly lack of finances in the homes. Most of these people, most of Ugandans who are affected are hand to mouth. Let's shift. Sometimes when we talk, we clump people, salary earners, and the day-to-day casual workers. These effects were most affecting people who are hand to mouth. That would talk of, for example, taxi drivers, border drivers, shop attendants, and alike that only earn when they go to work. So because of that, there was a lot of pressure on men to provide basic needs of the home. And whenever the research showed that whenever men would fail to provide and women would intensify the pressure, which actually the pressure is coming from the children, then there would be a fight. So the most shocking was how this geared the domestic violence in this period, which was least expected. Of course, again, the other most shocking was how actually some people have termed it that we expect more COVID babies. And the burden shifts. Now, the burden of women was more than ever before. Like the Honorable Right Speaker has put it, a lot of work had to be put on the woman because everything was shouldered on him. And incidentally, the other shocking thing was men were relaxed because They are not used of these house chores. That's what they are not created to do. So out of that, men would always be relaxed.
Bonnie, I'm not sure if that's right to say that they were not created to do it. I suspect they also have hands and feet, but okay, please carry on.
No, what I mean, our society, our culture, of course, as women's rights organization, they can do anything, but by the norms of our culture and society, men are not meant to be seen to be doing house chores, if I may put it that way. So because of that, it was shocking that even when all of them were at home, they still did not consider support women in housework. And yet they expected women to do all marital obligations plus housework. So that also caused a lot of domestic violence in our research.
Bonnie, one of the other things I've been hearing, and I also saw something on Facebook, is incest cases are coming up. So you have families locked together, young boys, young girls, brother and sister, and because you're in the same space for a very long time, one grandmother posted and said she found out her granddaughter was pregnant, and I think it was a grandmother or a mother, and and the daughter said it was, her brother. So she's still trying to get to that. Did you find cases like that from the survey you conducted? Cases of incest, defilement?
Yes, this one is more direct. I've also read it because a brother has impregnated two sisters, one of 15 and one of 13. But true, I think I had alluded it in my opening, that there was a lot of sexual intercourse amidst, and of course when I say enclosed, amidst people who are staying together. Redundancy caused a lot of misbehavior in that area. Remember, these are school-going children who are now put at home together, possibly in one room or in one gate, and the whole day they are on themselves or to themselves. So true, our findings also revealed that there was a lot of misbehavior or misconduct in regard to boys and girls in teenage age because of being together all the time and because of some level of redundancy, which was not expected either by parents or by guardians that stay with them. And at times they even have no choice because the places are too squeezed for them to manage such kind of situation.
Yes, you've mentioned the size of the spaces before. Honorable, what are your thoughts hearing that? I saw a bit of, you were a bit taken back by the conversation on incest.
Yes, in the course of our work, we get these complaints, but I had not yet picked up the ones during this period. But in the ordinary world, people come and there are people who have been writing to me to say this is happening, can you come and help us, and so on. I get those letters, but I've not yet got the ones of COVID. So when I heard the boy, his sister of 15 and sister of 13, it's rather difficult.
But what do we do about situations like this? Because we have a couple of more days of a lockdown. Yeah. And this is family. You're not going to, you can't run away from it. We're still in this situation. What is the way forward for especially cases of domestic violence, defilement? I know there's a case in the Antonde of a 2-year-old that was defiled. We're not going to run away from it. How do we address it? How do we even begin to start as women in leadership?
I think we need to do a lot more advocacy. Within Parliament, the members of Parliament have been recording messages in their languages to their people. So I told them that in addition to talking about hygiene, please talk to them about the domestic violence. We have also appealed to the religious leaders to intensify the messages on issues of violence. But I think the community development officers need now to be activated to go, and because they're in each sub-county, it's a local area, they could go and speak to the people. But ultimately, I think we need to assist our people to live in proper houses, not necessarily in a big bungalow, but to have a house where you have your sitting room, or the parents' room, and the children in separate rooms. Even if it's mud and water, but they should be in separate rooms. I think we have abandoned standards, especially on issues of physical planning. So I think it's an area we need to look at as a country.
How do we start to look at that when we are still grappling with issues of getting them access to food as a bare minimum? No,
I said ultimately, because we'll get out of this, but we need to plan for how to survive after this. So for now, but on the issues of violence, when you're cooped up together, there's no money in the house. You know, someone has to find the money. The mom is demanding for the food. The father says, I don't have money, and so on. And they're together, and you know, all that tension. So I think we need to continue finding ways to support them, but ultimately to ensure that the women are not entirely dependent on the men to make a living. But of course, these conditions are not, these are difficult because you're at home, you can't go to work, you can't go to the market, you can't go to town. So it's a difficult situation.
What are you looking at as solutions, Bonnie?
First and foremost, one of the biggest challenge we've had is that when COVID lockdown came in, all of us, the government, the individuals, shifted our attention to the COVID disease. And we forgot that amidst COVID, the situation, life is going on. Like you said, women are sleeping in the markets and they are leaving children at home. That's why there is incest and there are a lot of increased sexual activities. So as our organization, it's an advocacy organization, one of the options we are calling upon, first and foremost, is that if this question is take a little longer, the government, we are appealing to the government that in addition to the COVID task force committees at district and different levels, for the national level, it's very fine, but at district and different levels, let's also put some committees within the task force which look at these issues, the family issues, because all these originate from family. Why are the women sleeping in markets and not men? Because they are the ones who bear the pressure of children's issues, hunger, anger, and everything. So let's put a task force or a committee within a task force at district and sub-county level. I'm leaving the nation alone. That is one of the options we thought would come up with. Let's ensure that women leaders, like women council leaders, chairpersons of districts, be part of this committee because they are the ones who are directly meant to attend to issues of women. Because also lack of women on some of these task force at district level has caused a gap in how issues that are gender related are being handled. But first and foremost, let's increase sensitization on how we handle ourselves, especially at family level and at community level. Sometimes it's a shock to many of us and to many of the people in the community on how to stay with your wife from morning to evening, how to stay with your children. Through you, the right honorable speaker, I think, first of all, as a woman, member of parliament who is there for women, and as a speaker of the parliament, we would want to see the committees, task force, issues being raised on how gender can be incorporated in these task force committees, how gender can be incorporated in economic and financial management, how gender can be incorporated in minimizing domestic violence. It's not new that we are having domestic violence. The biggest challenge we found has been lack of attention to it, especially in this lockdown period. We did not give it any attention, and we also forgot that these are issues which must continue in society or even escalate because of the changing environment that people have been forced into.
All right, Bonnie, let's hear from the speaker maybe on what you've spoken about the task forces thinking about bringing in, including things like domestic violence as part of the key conversations they should be having and how they can support us. Is this something that is doable, Honorable?
I think it's really appropriate because if you look at the task forces, who is the RDC? It's a man. Most likely the chief administrative officer is a man. The DHO is a man. The whole team is a team of men.
The LCs as well?
Yes, the LC5 is a man. And so the structure, you may find, like in mine, it's only the chief administrative officer who is the lady. She's one lady among all those men. So now when we go, because now we've been allowed to go, when we go, then there are 2 or 3 of us ladies in the meeting. Otherwise, it's an all-male structure. So it's important to have women in those committees so that they can identify the issues that touch on the women. That's why up to today, the quarantine centers, which are in the districts, some of them don't have mattresses, some of them don't have soap and so on. And most importantly, they have no sanitary towels. So if women were on that committee, they would say, we need to look at this. The men won't because it's not their business. So it's important to engender those committees. That's why from Parliament, I have sent, I think, a total of now 10 members. From first 2 from the Parliamentary Commission, then 2 backbenchers, making sure that they are both men and women. Then I've also sent a team from the Committee of Human Rights so that they look at all the issues of the rights. They're also there. I've also sent some to the Committee on Health. They're the ones who went around and identify the problems in the putting together of people and so on. So it's important that the genders are involved.
All right, let's take a short break and we'll be right back.